to an East Tennessee conservative meeting before. David and I are really glad that you're here. I just want to point your attention to our table over here. If you're not on our email list and would like to get updates, meeting reminders, legislative updates during the legislative session, I'll be able to talk here in a minute, when it's in session. We send out really good action items, reminders of meetings and updates on issues that are happening. We don't bombard you with emails, but if you'd like to be on our email list, just go ahead and sign up here on our list and we'll get you added. We also want to thank Pastor Mike and Michelle Williams, who are not here tonight, but they graciously allow us to meet here at their church free of charge. So we really appreciate that. And we always have a box for donations for them. So if you feel like you'd like to contribute, it's just our little way of helping them pay the electric bill. So we appreciate that. And I would like to also point out that the restrooms are down this way, around the corner, and you can also go downstairs in the back. So we always start each meeting with prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you would please stand, and we'd like to ask Pastor Ken Peters from Patriot Church to open us in prayer.
Awesome, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful evening here in East Tennessee. We thank you for bringing in some amazing guests and speakers. Lord, I thank you for David and Susan Baugh and their heart to make a difference in our nation for the Lord and in Tennessee and in East Tennessee. Father, bless everything that goes on this evening. Anoint every speaker and continue to bless this wonderful, wonderful organization. In the name of Jesus, and all God's people said, Amen. Amen.
Can we have a show of hands for all those who are currently serving in the military? All right. And how about those who are fire service? We have other veterans? All right. So if you are either one of those groups, would you still remain standing? And everyone else have a seat for just a second. So I want you all to stand up if you are a veteran or is currently serving. So we have all those folks? All right. Anyone who's sitting down that is a veteran? All right. So what we'd like to do is give you all a round of applause right now and say thank you for that. We're going to say a pledge of allegiance. This is also the last chance we're going to be together before our next meeting in December for us to celebrate Veterans Day. So we wanted to say a special thank you to you guys who served. And so now we all please join them, and we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance together. All right? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you guys. It's beautiful. You have a seat. We're going to have a very short business side of our meeting talking about upcoming events, and no slides to accompany this, so it makes it easy for our sound box tonight. We have two church events we wanted to share with you guys. So you are invited to Patriot Church. It's my church, Susan's in my church, Saturday at 11 o'clock at Patriot Church. And they're going to feed you, and we're going to have a speaker and a special singing. It's a chorus, actually, and they're going to sing some patriotic songs. You're welcome to that. If you would like to attend, because they need to plan on who to feed, how many to feed, let's see, Pastor Ken, I'm not going to ask you to talk to Pastor Ken because he needs to leave a little bit early, but if you will let Susan or me know that you plan to attend, that would be great. The other church we wanted to let you know about an event, and that is RIO Regeneration. So Sunday, they are hosting, right after their their morning service, celebration that includes a special guest speaker, and they're going to feed you as well. So if you'd like to join them, you can show up here on Sunday. You can join them for their service and then join them after service. And that will happen in the cafe next door where we've met in the past. All right. Wanted to give you an update. We have a program called ROAR. That stands for Restoring Our American Roots. And the idea there is that we can never really make America great again for the long term unless we make America God So we want to get back to those foundations, and the reason America is the longest standing constitutional republic in the world, in world history, is because we were founded on the Word of God. So we want to get back to that. So we want to work with pastors and churches who will encourage everyone in their church to do three things: register to vote, and vote biblical values. So we are partnering with pastors that will do that, and from those churches, we want those pastors and those churches to be educating their folks on what the Scripture says about all the issues, because our salt and light has to go outside the walls of the church, and we're to infect everything around us for the better. So we have three of those opportunities coming up. We wanted to tell you about and invite you to. We are going to do a Roar launch here at Regeneration, and that will be in the cafe next door here, Wednesday, 19 November, and you're all welcome to bring yourself and or friends. And we're also going to launch at our church, Patriot Church, on Wednesday, December 10th. And that's going to be a lot of fun too. And Smoky Mountain Methodist Church, they're part of the Global Methodist Movement, and they are going to launch their Roar program in February. We can give you the specific date on that as time gets a little bit closer. All right. So a whole lot of great stuff going on in the country, a lot of great stuff going on locally. But how many of you are thankful that we have a president that will stand for America first? All right. Lots of great things going on. And we could spend the rest of the evening going through all of those accomplishments and things that are answers to prayer. But we're going to let you count those many blessings after the meeting on your own time. And then share those amongst yourselves so you can encourage each other. But we have some guests that we want you to enjoy some updates from. One of the guests that we want to introduce to you right now really doesn't need an introduction because he's been here before. I want to introduce to you Mr. Jared Anderson, who is currently, as you make your way up, kind sir, Jared Anderson is currently the chair of the Blount County Commission. And in one of our previous meetings, we had one of our other county commissioners who's also here today. That's Miss Misty Davis. Raise your hand. Yeah, right here. Yeah, that's a big fan. But one of the things that Misty said, and what we'd asked Misty to do, and she gives a really great presentation that night. But what we had specifically asked you to do, Misty, was to give us an idea of what it takes to be a commissioner, what the job entails, and kind of the overview of that job requirement. Because in 26, we want to elect really great commissioners here and in every county. So she gave us an oversight of what that entails. And one of the things she said is that the stabilizing factor and the leader of that group, the county commission, is the gentleman standing right next to me. You said that from the podium, I think. And so Jared is that man. So what I'd like to let you all know is now not only is he the chair of the Blount County Commissioners, he is also running for county mayor. So, yeah. So and we're also going to give a round of applause to his beautiful wife, who also said, okay, you can run. Because it's a family affair. Hey, brother. All right, brother.
Well, thank you, David, for that introduction. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm going to adjust this microphone a little bit. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. All right. My wife said, you're going to do great, but if they give you a microphone, take it. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak to you tonight, to share a bit about the campaign and a bit about the future of our county. First of all, I want to share a little bit about me. My wife, Ashley, is here tonight, and I know we can just clap for her and everything, but she was the one that gave me the thumbs up to run for commission almost 8 years ago. And that was when she was 8 months pregnant with our second daughter. And our first daughter was 15 months old, I believe. So chalk that up to temporary insanity on both of our parts. I appreciate that. Our girls now, as I said, are 7 and 8 years old. And I suspect our girls are going to be conservatives one day. because when one of them was 4, we saw them walking around with one of my books from college. And I was a poli-sci major, and I had all these books left over from college. You know, you don't always agree with the books, but you keep them because you pay for them, right? But she was walking around with this book, and I said, "What book do you have there?" And she says, "It's called The Girl Who Lost Her Bean." And I said, what book is that? And she handed me the book, and it said, "The Communist Manifesto" by Karl Marx. And I said, "Sweetheart, I think a lot of people lost their beans over what's in that book." Anyway, I grew up here in Blount County. I went to Vanderbilt University on a scholarship and served as president of the Vanderbilt College Republicans there. And then I went to Emory University Law School in Atlanta before coming home here to East Tennessee. I know you all know this, but there's nothing that makes you appreciate this county more than living somewhere else like Atlanta. Let's talk about this campaign. As a conservative, I think one of the most important things that you can do in discernment and picking which candidate to vote for is look at what they've done with the time that they've had, look at what they've done with the resources available to them to advance a conservative vision for the future. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments that we've seen on our county commission from a conservative standpoint, to kind of let you know where we're coming from over this campaign and the foundation that we're going to have to build on when the next mayor takes office next September. So from a fiscal responsibility standpoint, I've been very proud as a budget committee member for the last 8 years. We've had balanced budgets here in Blount County. We've paid down millions of dollars of our Blount County debt without borrowing any new money. We've achieved the highest credit rating recently of AAA. That's pretty unheard of. And we're on track to keep paying down our debt. That's been very important to me, seeing the amount of debt that we've had at one point in this county was just unbelievable. It was not well structured. Perhaps it was at one time for the purpose they were pursuing, but it quickly became a burden to this county and the taxpayers of this county. So we've been paying that down. One of the things that I'm really proud of is we've expanded the senior property tax freeze program. So people don't know about this program. If you're a senior making under a certain amount of money, you're eligible for a tax freeze. So that'll protect you against increases in the rate. It'll protect you against, I think, increases in the assessment. And it gives you some assurance that you can withstand any kind of changes in the property tax situation. So we, at the commission level, passed senior property tax freeze expansion. And that's been a big boom for our seniors, but most people don't know about it, so make sure you tell everybody that they need to apply for that every year. Another thing that we've done and worked on, it's been pretty heavy on all our hearts, is the issue of protecting children. I know that a lot of you have been following the news about what's been going on. We have some good leadership in our school system now that's taking steps to fix some of the issues that we've had with certain situations going on. But the commission has been very supportive of those efforts. And one of the things that we did was we passed a resolution that actually made some suggestions. If there is a similar situation that comes up, we hope it doesn't, but if it does, and you have to charge somebody with a crime, we want to make sure that what they're charging them with is something that carries the harshest penalties available. So the case that we had come up that was in the news, was very prominent, was a gentleman they charged with offensive touching, which is a step down from some of the more serious crimes. But for some reason, we noticed that there's no distinction in the law between offensive touching of an adult and offensive touching of a minor, which is ridiculous. There should be a difference between those two offenses. There should be a higher penalty if it's directed towards a minor, and there should be really some teeth into that law. So county commission can't do anything about it other than say we think the law needs to change and encourage our representatives to stand up for harsher penalties for that. One of the things that we pursued were dedicated child abuse investigators. So we have a child abuse center that deals with those situations, and at one point they didn't have dedicated detectives that were there to investigate those issues. And so through commission support, we have now funded those positions, and hopefully that will lead to some gains for fixing those situations. Other things that we're working on in the schools and being supportive of the school board is database development. So coming from past situations, it's not enough to just have personnel records and complaints put in a filing cabinet where nobody can cross-reference them or do anything with them. We've passed a resolution to encourage not just our local school system to keep those records electronically, but also to encourage the state to come in and say, we're going to have a statewide database. So if you go do something as a staff member in a school in Blount County, and then you go to Shelby County, if there's a trail of allegations that they need to look closer at, that's going to follow you. You can't just outrun your own bad conduct. Planning. I think we all know that there are issues with planning and development. One of the things that I've been a big advocate for, and I'm going to be a big advocate for in the coming weeks, is smarter planning regarding our growth and infrastructure. I think we've got a big issue in this county with transportation, with traffic, with infrastructure, and if you grew up here, you know, we used to have a bypass. We called it the bypass, and it actually bypassed someone. I don't think it's bypassing anything now. It's right in the thick of it. So we're going to have to figure out some ways through, I believe, a road study or something to address our issues so that in 10 years, we're not still sitting in traffic going, well, I wish we'd done something about this earlier. So another accomplishment is in preserving and promoting Blount County values. I was very pleased to co-sponsor Commissioner Micah's resolution to create a Blount County Historical Commission. We've got a lot of records in this county and a lot of history, and I think we need to hold on to that and preserve it. I'm proud of this one as well. We voted to create a Blount County 250 committee. So I think a lot of you know that our 250th anniversary for Blount County is coming up next year, next July 4th. We have some committee members here present that we're very proud of that are going to be working on that. But it's such a big deal that I felt like we needed to have some central organization that's going to coordinate all of our celebrations. You know, this nation was founded on principles that were unheard of at the time, and I think that's worthy of celebrating. And you know, it wasn't a sure thing at the time. I mean, if you look at Valley Forge, if you look at all the history, I mean, we have a lot to be thankful for, and a lot of providential involvement was there, and so. I'm very proud to have supported that, and I'm looking forward to a good celebration next year. So let me go and move on to what I hope to do as your next county mayor. So our campaign our campaign slogan is "Keep it blunt." And that doesn't apply to this speech. It does apply to this speech. Let me back up. So the corollary to that is keep it brief, and that does not apply to this speech. But I'm going to try. So part of keeping it blunt, you know, it's a lot of different things. We've got something special in this county we need to preserve. So one main point is keeping it balanced. That fiscal responsibility that I talked about, keeping those budgets balanced, living within our means, just like a family has to, just like a business has to. We need to keep doing that and keep paying off our debt. We need to keep it moving. We need to address those traffic and infrastructure issues, make sure we can get from point A to point B, and plan out how we're going to pay for those things, and not just kick the can down the road. We need to keep it fixed. Now for this one, it's not talking about animals, it's talking about our schools that need to be kept in good condition. We have schools that have some issues and they're working on addressing them, but a lot of them are in poor shape. And we've set aside some money in the budget every year to address those issues, but we need to keep that fund in place. We need to keep attacking the issues and addressing first our needs before we address our wants. The fourth point I've got is keep it honest. We need to keep county government open and transparent. We need to make meetings and budgets easier for folks to follow, and we need to be very upfront with people about what they cost and why. Greater transparency has been very important to us. One of the things I didn't mention earlier is we've revamped the cameras in the commission room so you can actually see your commissioners, which is important to know who to hold accountable. We passed a resolution that requires transparency when someone is sending us a nomination. We get so many nominations for the county commission. we want to make sure that when they're sending us a nomination, that they're sending us a nomination that was recommended to us in an open meeting. Government have to follow the Open Meetings Act. We can't have deliberations in secret. Well, if someone sends us a nomination, that should be something that should be discussed in public as well. Lastly, final point is keep it conservative. We need to stand up for faith, for family, for freedom, for tradition. Those things are important, even at the local level, and it matters who sits in the mayor's seat. We need to keep government limited and focused. We need to spend responsibly and protect what's working. We need to acknowledge personal responsibility and hard work. So let me just close with this. People will ask me all the time, they find out I'm running, and they'll say, well, why are you running? And I'll say, well, I'll kind of joke, and I'll say, I'll bring up the temporary insanity line, or, because it is a little insane. But the real reason is someone's going to do this job. And who I want to be in the mayor's seat is someone who is conservative. I want someone who's energized. I want someone who knows what they're doing and can talk about these issues and can do a good job and not be learning on the job. This is not a retirement job. This is not something that you get because you want to coast out the remaining years of your working career. The person that I want to see, and this is not just for the mayor's seat, but for all the seats, is someone who's going to wake up every day and figure out how to make Blount County an even better place to live. Yes. And sometimes you think about those things, and you think, well, who's going to do it? And sometimes the people around you are telling you, you're the person that has to do it. And that's the position that I'm in. That's why I'm ready to be your next Blount County Mayor. We just have 30 more seconds.
Absolutely.
I told Dave to bring out the shepherd's hook if I go over.
You're good.
I just want to take an informal poll. How many of you, if it was legal and you could vote twice to put a conservative in office, would you do it?
Yes.
I'm not seeing all the hands.
If it's legal.
If it's legal, and as a lawyer, I got to say that. Well, let me just tell you, you've got the opportunity to vote as many times as you can muster, but it's not through voting at the polls. It's through volunteering, it's through donating, it's time and money. And I hate to ask for time and money, but if you're so inclined, I'd say get involved with my campaign or another commission campaign. Commissioner campaigns are difficult because nobody cares about county commission campaigns. It has been easier to raise awareness and funds and excitement for this mayoral campaign than all those county commission campaigns because nobody knows what they do. They don't know who their commissioner is. They don't even know what district they're in. But I would encourage you all, please get involved with those races. Please get us some good conservatives in office because it'll make a big difference. Thank you.
He was running Democrat there for a minute, talking about voting multiple times.
Jared, I used you a lot.
Jared, do you have a website if someone wants to find out more about
Yes,
it?
I've got some flyers. It's Anderson for Blunt.
Okay.
Not the number, but for FOR.
Okay, if you want to put later, if you want to put them on our table up here.
Yeah, the flyers. Yeah, put your flyers up here so we can pass those out. Okay. Another hand of applause. Good job. Appreciate that. Barry is a true conservative and he's a solid Christian man, and his background in law and scripture are just really amazing. And I think I bragged on your law book collection. Was it Blackstone's Law? You had the commentaries of the law, right? And that was one of the most referenced sources in the Founding Fathers era. So that's a big deal. And so he's actually applying that too, so we appreciate that. Blackstone's Law, one of the great ministers and evangelists of the Second Great Awakenings, was studying to be a lawyer. He wasn't a believer at all. And when he was studying Blackstone's Law, and Thomas Jefferson said that our attorneys study Blackstone like Muslims study the Quran. And when he was studying Blackstone's Law to become a lawyer, he found Jesus because so many scriptures were referenced in Blackstone's Law, the commentaries on the law. So great addition, we appreciate that. And is it okay if we call your wife an Eskimo tonight? Can we do that? So Say it again? Yeah, I'll have to ask. So, so your dad was a military man too. So you were actually born in Alaska, correct? While he was active duty, right? Yeah, and really enjoyed getting to meet him. We kind of got pulled in a different direction to get to finish that conversation. But your dad was a veteran, and he was a Huey pilot, and I think he said also later a Cobra pilot. So can we give him a hand? Take this home to him. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right. So our next guest, we're up to Reed, right, Susan? Okay. So our next guest speaker is joining us from Calvary Chapel. He's actually Calvary Chapel, Chattanooga, who's the pastor there, and has an amazing program he's going to share with us. So we're talking about a great awakening that's happening now. It's like the next great awakening. And we're talking certainly tonight about Gen Z and Gen X and beyond, but there's a huge hunger for figuring out what it was that made us great in the first place, and it turns out it's our biblical foundation. So as this great awakening is upon us, it's not coming, it's here. So we have an incredible program here that we're going to hear a little bit about, and a special offer too, so this is just for you. I also wanted to do a shout out, so at dinner or lunch, it was kind of 3 o'clock, so I'm not sure what that was. We had a really a nice young man who served us and struck up a great conversation, very personable. And turns out he's a solid believer in Christ, and we just got to be good friends. And so we talked a little bit about why this gentleman was joining us and what we do here. And he said, well, when do you guys meet and where? And that server's name is Lucas, and Lucas is right here. Can you shake? Welcome, Lucas. East Tennessee Conservatives, welcome. And if you get a chance to visit with him, you're probably going to ask if he has been in broadcast, because he's a really great voice. But spoiler alert, he has not been a DJ, and you don't sing either, right? Okay. Even if we give you money? Okay. No takers.
I would say yes.
Yeah, say yes. So we're going to welcome Reed, and Reed is going to tell you really his background and what he's offering. Now, this is a bit of a sneak peek, because he's going to come back and spend a little bit more time with us. We wanted to get him in now because the information is so timely and will fit really well with what we're talking about here tonight and where we are as a nation. So please join me in a warm welcome for Mr. Reed Uberman.
Some people are height challenged, I've realized in life. There we go. It is so good to be in Maryville, or Maryville, if you are not from Tennessee. Anyway, really, really glad to be with you guys tonight and to share something very special with you. It's something that I've been working on for the better part of maybe 15, even 20 years. And it is right now at its infancy. So I'll go ahead and tease a little bit and just say, tonight, you are the first group of people I've had the opportunity to introduce this to, and you can be at the ground floor of something that I believe is going to shake the nations, something that I believe will be very big. And I'll get to that in just a moment, but I want to start with a question. Do you believe that religion and politics mix? Yes. That's my question. So I'm in good company, right? So I figured that would be the answer for most people. But it took me a long time in Christian ministry to realize this. Because we've been told, the one thing you don't talk about at a dinner party or whatever is religion and politics, whatever. Okay, now if you're really savvy, you understand the answer to your question is, well, there is no such thing as a non-religious person. Look at the trans movement. Look at the pride movement. They love their parades. They look at the abortion movement in our nation. They have their own liturgy. They say, my body, my choice. It doesn't even make any sense. It's completely and utterly dogmatic. There's no reason behind it at all. So you better believe that there are religious movements that will take your place if you decide to stay out of politics. I like to say it this way: if God is not on the throne, somebody will take his place. Now that's an impossibility. God is always on the throne. But what I mean is this, is that nature abhors a vacuum. And if you remove Christianity from this nation, guess what you'll get? What you're starting to see. You'll get the woke movement. You'll get men can get pregnant. You'll get men can go in women's bathrooms. And all of the things that we're seeing right now. You'll get that a baby really isn't a person until it comes out of the womb. And all of these kind of ridiculous ideas. You know why that is? because our nation was founded on Christian principles. It's a historic fact. It's not just something that I decided to share with you guys today because I love Jesus so much. Although I do. It's a reality. And the reason we are seeing so many problems in our nation today is because Christians have been largely silent on the issues that matter most. Yeah. Now, there is a core principle of the Roman Empire, a core virtue, and it's comprised in the word pietas. And it literally means, you might think about being pious or somebody who is dutiful, right? So a good Roman would be somebody who is dutiful in three areas: in their worship of God, in their worship, not their worship, but in their commitment to family, and in their commitment to country. I want to submit to you that you can have two of those things, but if you don't have the third, you don't have any of them, right? So let me put it this way. So you can have a devotion to family, and you can have a devotion to country, but if you don't have a devotion to Christ, you'll have a crumbling family, and you'll have a crumbling country. Now you can have a devotion to God, and you can have a devotion to your family, but if you don't have a country to protect those values, guess what you got? You have a crumbling church, and you have a crumbling family. We need all three of those things. And I submit to you tonight that Christians have to do a better job of the first. Now, I don't say this with condemnation, I just say this simply of myself and each and every one of us. We have got to get better at insisting that the family and our country is in trouble without God. So Christless conservatism is not the answer. It will only take us so far. I don't want to get into this too much today because you can go online and you can hear a lot of this. You can even listen to my podcast today, which again, I'll get to in just a moment. But I want to set the philosophical framework for what I'm after. There's a splintering taking place right now within the conservative movement. I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you're paying attention online, there are a bunch of different factions cropping up right now within the midst of the conservative movement. I also think that's because the conservative movement has to come to a reckoning. They are going to have to decide if truth is a value and not just defeating Democrats. And ultimately, they're going to have to decide if Jesus Christ is God, and if the principles found at least in Scripture are the moral principles that hold our laws together. And I'll go back to just a little bit of what I was talking about before. So many pastors have said you cannot legislate righteousness. Really? Point to the law that isn't bound by a moral principle. Point to a single law. Oh, say tax policy. Really? Talk to the left about that. They think you should eat the rich. There isn't a moral underpinning underneath tax policy. You know, we could argue about this all day long, but I think by and large, I think you understand that there is moral values that underpin all of our laws here in America. And the question is, whose morality? Which morality? By what standard will we get any of it done? And I have a conviction that Jesus Christ and Christ alone is what we need for the conservative movement to truly win this nation back. Not just Christ's conservatism, but Christ-full conservatism. And so I've started a media company with that in mind. Now, for the sake of being completely derivative, you can think about it in terms of the Daily Wire. Ultimately, what I have to offer you guys today is a podcasting platform called Indie Thinker. But it goes much further than that. It's also a platform that you can become a member of for $7 a month, where you can gain access to premium Christian conservative content. And because the space is so small, I can rightly say I have the fastest growing Christian conservative platform in the nation. But even as people start to become wise to the reality that we need Christ-full conservatism, I'm going to ask for your help in building this platform and truly making it the largest Christian conservative platform in the world. So by becoming a member, you'll gain access to groundbreaking Hollywood films. I'd love to introduce you. You can see some of them on the screen here. But you'll gain access to films like An Open Secret, which blows the doors open off of sexual abuse of children in Hollywood. You'll gain access to documentaries like Contraland, which blows the doors open to expose how human trafficking is taking place in this nation. You know, you get BLM talking about whether or not Black Lives Matter and how much slavery has had repercussions and reverberations in the present. Well, can I tell you that slavery isn't a thing of the past, and it takes place in our nation, and a chief vector of slavery is happening in our southern border. There's movies that expose that on our platform. Right now, we're at the early stages. So we don't have as much as we would like, but we've got a lot of content that you can already stream right now at home as much as you want, unlimited. We've got ebooks, audiobooks that will help you deepen your faith and truly grapple with the ideas that help found this nation. See, it's not enough that you just go to a church once a week and listen to your pastor for an hour a day. I want to create a platform that will steep you in Christian conservative ideas that will truly help you make a difference, that will educate you and empower you to make a difference. And then also, too, you get to be, like I said, the first crowd tonight that helps us really achieve the goal of launching this platform and turning it into something really, really special. And like I said, it's already kind of there. We've got a lot of content already for $7 a month for you to download. And by giving to us today and by joining us today, you can help us also add more content and create our own content. So I really want to encourage you to stop by the table before you leave today. At least get some more information, see if it's something that you would like to join, and then prayerfully consider it. Or just go ahead and throw somebody down on the table, whatever you want to do. I mean, we are in church. I'll pass the plate around here in just a moment. But sincerely, I want to submit this to you and ask you to prayerfully and thoughtfully consider joining us today. Become a partner in changing the future of Christianity in our nation. I truly believe this platform can do it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe that. So I have 3 asks of you tonight. So one, would you at least do this? This is totally free. You can go to our YouTube channel where you can subscribe and you can get notified whenever podcasts drop. I do podcasts twice a week on Tuesday and Thursday, so one just dropped today. And it's about a little conversation that took place between Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson. I think you'll enjoy that. And then I'll have another episode that comes out Thursday, and I do that twice a week at least. And you guys know Monty Fritz, I think. I just had Monty on the show, and so you can see the episode that dropped Monday of the guest show of Indie Thinker. So go to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Indie Thinker, where you can subscribe to the channel, and then you can get those podcasts when they become available. And then you can go to our social media. That's going to be any of the Facebook or Instagram /Reed Uberman. That's my name, and it's going to be a lot for you to remember, but it's REED, and then Uber, like the cab company, and then man. Instagram is where I have some of the most traffic, so I'd really love for you to go to Instagram and even follow me right now. I know we're in church, but you can pull out your phone and you can start looking at it, and you can follow me on Instagram. I'd love for you to do that. And then finally, I would like you to consider becoming a member of indiethinker.org. You can do that by going to indiethinker.org/support, as you see up there on the screen. And I can give you an idea of the many, many pieces of content that we have to truly help you take your independent thinking journey to the next level, deepen your faith, and truly become empowered with the ideas that form this nation and that will help continue it to become and be the great nation that God has always intended it to be. I think that this is a helpful piece in surrounding you and saturating you with some of those ideas. So I hope you'll give it prayerful consideration and come see me at the table after. Thanks so much.
Flyers for Jared Anderson are right by the candy. All right, conservatives and candy. What was that? Oh, sure you can. Oh, man, so how do you get this down from a tall guy? All right. So is that cool? Is it good stuff? All right, well, we're looking forward to partnering, and also for any of the pastors that are here tonight, great resource there too, a good partnering opportunity. So one of the things that we talked about over the meal today was the connection with TPUSA, and what Reed's been working on goes back a long time, but there's also a real crosswalk in his background with the TPUSA, and specifically with Charlie Kirk, and we had a real great conversation about that too. You'll have to learn more about that, but we are very engaged with TPUSA, and especially TPUSA Faith and what they're doing for the youth. We have an outreach program. TPUSA has an outreach program for our high schoolers, and that's called TPUSA Club America. Well, we had Lakey as the coordinator. Lakey Derrick, you met her, I think that was last month, or the month before, or both. She's incredibly busy and doing great things. She had hoped to have 16 chapters, so she's new here. She wanted to have 16 chapters. That was before Charlie Kirk went to heaven. She now is over 40 chapters. Yeah, right? So what the enemy meant for evil, God turned around and has used for good. So we wanted to see if we had an example of a local chapter right here that could come up and visit with you all. And happily, we do. We have a young lady who is the chapter president for the Maryville, or Maryville High School, and her name is Ava Beard. So please welcome Ava. She's going to come up and share a little bit about her experience.
Sorry if I stutter. A little nervous. All right. Keep it short.
Make sure we can see her face.
Shorter than the last speaker.
All right. Hello, my name is Ava Beard, and I am the president of Maryville High School's Club America. I used to live in Washington State before moving here to Tennessee in 2021. 54 days ago, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. 3 days later, I contacted Turning Point USA, wanting to know if there was a chapter available for a high school student. There weren't any. Lakey contacted me and suggested that I should start one, which encouraged me to start one. God had a plan and put me in a leadership role. So here I am, learning as I go. As everyone knows, the public school system leans towards a liberal point of view, borderlining on socialism and most of the time leaving Christian conservative opinions out of the teaching. It has been difficult trying to get this club recognized by the school, and I had to do a lot of footwork. But by God's grace, we made it through. We are excited to have our first official meeting next Monday. But we haven't gotten our kids to start tabling just yet. We would like to start tabling at sports events for our school, discuss why the Constitution is an important structure to our life, the negative effects of modern-day feminism and how it affects our generation, free market and how it helps boost capitalism, the patriarchy, and explain how boys should apply it to their lives so they in the future can become men, and those men would protect and lead their families, and how critical race theory shouldn't be taught to high schoolers. We are also looking forward to doing fundraisers for pro-life Christian pregnancy centers and helping our community. We are looking for people who want to come alongside our club and help donate. Thank you for your time.
Proud parents and the family over here. Can you all stand up for a second? Let's like them have a hand of applause too. Thank you. About 4 years old here in the great state of Tennessee, and love these guys. They've got a great testimony as well, and so things are looking really good. So proud of you all. So before we introduce our guest speaker, our primary speaker for the night, we have some really amazing leaders in the community and the conservative movement tonight. So I wanted y'all to see them and recognize them. I'm having trouble tracking where y'all are set, but we have at least 2 leaders of pro-life organizations. Here you are. So can you guys stand up for your programs? Yell out to everyone what you stand for, your programs, both of you.
I'm Mr. Ranford. I work with the Center for Bioethical Reform that shows the pictures of babies and brings that knowledge to the public.
And primarily at colleges, correct?
Correct.
Thanks, Lincoln. Yep.
I'm the board chair at Pregnancy Resource Center here in Maryville, and they're at 103 Station Street. If you want to contact them sometime, get a tour, get a full understanding, and if you bring your checkbook with you, that's okay too.
Thank you. Real warriors, I appreciate that. So we also have a couple of, do we have county commissioners? I'm losing you guys. Okay, so our county commissioners, can you please stand up? All right, this is Miss Misty Davis. Please introduce yourselves and say which district you're representing.
Yeah, my name is David. I'm in
Thank you, Nick. All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. And what about our pastors? We're a little short on pastors for our usual nights. If you are a pastor or minister, please raise your hand or stand. Please stand. All right. Right here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Great. Thank you. And this is a newbie to the community here, Pastor David. You're only here since like 5 generations ago, 12 generations ago. Y'all came from Cates Cove, right? Right. So thank you for what y'all have done to make this a great place, and we're here to support you and make sure that it stays constantly, continually better, conservative, and Christian. So thank you for our faith leaders. Appreciate that. And so I feel like I'm missing someone else. So if I missed you, I'm sorry, but it's great to see you all. And looking forward to getting to know you guys some more. Good stuff going on. One of the things that we hear with TPUSA is they've really been reaching out to the younger generation. And it's very, very true. And so our guest speaker tonight, Mr. Aaron Miller, is going to be talking to us tonight about the importance of the legacy, building a legacy out of Gen Z, and the importance of pulling them into the conservative movement, but really doing that from a foundational basis. And a really good man to do that. When we first launched DTC, Aaron, you were one of our first guest speakers, came all the way from Maury County. And initially, we're just talking, we've known him for so long that we were trying to remember how did we even get together. But you actually came to national prominence because as a county commissioner, he was standing up against pornography in the libraries. And because he was so successful, he made national news, and a lot of people didn't like that. So by the time you came to visit us, your wife wouldn't let you leave town unless he had an armed guard. So when we saw you last time, or when you spoke to us last time, that's what you were doing. You were traveling with security. And it was a really big security too. I wanted to make sure we were real nice to you that night. So he's been leading the charge. He's served as a county commissioner and has served as a county commissioner, and that's a big deal. There's a real servitude associated with that, and we appreciate that. I do have one criticism for you, and that is we were visiting on the phone one night. This is a long time ago, but I don't remember why you called, but we were talking about something, and it was a great conversation. And you said, do you mind, can I excuse myself? I need to go put the kids to bed. And he said, sure. So he called us back, and when he called us back, he realized we were in a different time zone. And at our time, it was getting pretty close to bedtime, and he paid us what looked like a really good compliment at first, and then he kept talking. I don't think you remember this. We didn't recount it for you yet. But what you said when you came back, I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize you guys are an hour ahead of me. And he said, here's the good part. He said, you guys, because he had Susan and me on speaker, he said, you guys have more energy than anyone I know your age. But we still like you. And we're going to go have our geritol, as soon as we get home. But anyway, you're doing great things, and you're speaking tonight on such a current topic and where we're going with Gen Z. Gen Z, we spoke several months back how Bible sales have gone through the roof, and they've been doing that now year on, year out. And the major portion of that, if you looked at the demographics, it's for the Gen Z, and especially for young men, and also coming back to church. And they're coming back to church, and they're looking for, as Charlie said, those churches that will speak God's truth to the issues. So on that same note, this young man is going to come up and tuck me in for the night, because we're way over for this. Welcome, Aaron Miller.
Thank you, David. I've got a few thank yous to throw out real quick. I feel like I'm accepting award in Hollywood. Gross. But thank you to David and Susan for having me. Thank all of you for coming. Y'all should be extremely proud of her for stepping up and doing that. That's incredible. And you should be very proud for doing it. That takes a lot of courage from somebody that has used to have to wear soft body armor to these kinds of events. My wife let me leave it at home tonight. But, and the veterans, if you entered the service before I did, thank you for paving the way for me, which is very apropos to what I'm going to speak on tonight. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I have good news for you. America is back. We are so back. We are so back. But, like any of the veterans in the audience can tell you, it's not enough to seize a position. You have to be able to hold it. And we're in a good spot right now, but we need reinforcements. And in this political war, don't kid yourself, this is a war. We have to do better about raising those reinforcements. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Slides, please. All right, so who am I? Why are you listening to me? I'm a county commissioner in Maury County, Tennessee. I'm the founder and executive director of the Foundation for Liberty and Freedom, a doctoral candidate in public administration, and if you're wondering, it is about as exciting as it sounds. I enjoy it. I'm a political consultant as a sort of a passion project of mine, so if y'all do consider running for office or are, please get in touch with me. Veteran of the Air Force, I'm currently serving in the Air National Guard, is a drill status guardsman. Some of you might have heard the term weekend warrior. That's me. And most importantly to this discussion, I've been a mentor for Gen Z political candidates with an incredible organization called Run Gen Z since about 2022. And I would encourage you all to look them up online after the speech. Slide, please. All right, so some objectives here. Who are you generationally? The generational differences, and we're going to talk about economic, political, and worldview. What is the operating environment that Gen Z is working in? We have to be able to understand where they're coming from in order to best prepare them for where they're going. Why does it matter, and what can be done? Slide, please. Oh, sorry, one more. Who are you? So go ahead and take a look at this. Find yourself in this, the grand scheme of things here, these year spans. How many baby boomers do we have? Okay, quite a few. That means you have a lot of responsibility. Gen X. Okay, a few. Millennials, that's me, right? Gen Z. Okay, we got a few hands, that's awesome. Thank you for coming. And Generation Alpha, so those are my kids. Which, there you go. Okay, nice. All right, represent. So we have just to give you a general idea of who we're looking at and to build some context into this discussion. Slide, please. So I know it's boring, we're going to talk some numbers, but this is important to frame the overall conversation. Economic attitudes. According to surveys, 64% of baby boomers believe their financial situation is at least good. Compare that to Gen X, 54% believe that they will not be financially prepared for retirement. Millennials, 74% report struggling to save for retirement. And Gen Z, 87% of them worry about the economy. And as we'll touch on later, Gen Z doesn't think they're going to have a retirement. But why? Well, each and every generation is going to be formed by their experiences. And we're going to touch on this a little bit more in a second. But you have to understand, especially when you were coming up, when you're, the first 20, 30 years of your life are going to form how you view the world. And so baby boomers, you were extremely blessed. You got to live through two massive historic economic booms, post-World War II, and then of course the Reagan years. Gen X, they had it pretty good. They got some Reagan in there. And then they had the dot-com bubble. And as I started digging into some of this data, and you line that up with their outlooks more broadly, I didn't want to bore you all with too many numbers, so I didn't include them, but it makes sense why their outlook is the way it is on the economy based on their formulative experiences. Millennials, our experience has been shaped by 9/11. I was in 6th grade when the towers came down. 10 years later, I was deployed to Afghanistan. And we're looking around going, why are we still here? And then we were there for another 10 years. The global war on terrorism has been a major shaper of our experience and how we view the world. And then, of course, we're on our 5th economic recession. I lost count somewhere. And of course, COVID. Generation Z. Gen Z is coming up with a lot of millennial siblings. And so they're getting secondhand stories. And at the same time, as they're entering the workforce, the oldest Gen Z is about 28, they're seeing, hey, things aren't great out here. They lived through COVID. Some of the younger ones were even in high school or college during COVID. So they've seen some very important historical events in a very short period of time while they're still extremely young. All of those things are going to shape their worldview. Slide, please. A little bit more and then we'll move on. I'm not trying to bash any generations here, but the boomers they had it pretty good. So to reach the same standard of living of baby boomers 2 years into the workforce, Gen Z would have to make $77,000 a year right now, adjusted for inflation. Rates of home ownership at 30, baby boomers were 52%, Gen X was 49, millennials 43, and Gen Z's projected, because the data hasn't matured yet, the generation hasn't matured yet to age 30, but it's projected to be about 38%. So we're seeing a consistent trajectory downward in home ownership. I'm talking to Gen Z in Columbia, where I live, that are plugged in, they're conservative, they share our values, but they're telling me, Aaron, my girlfriend and I, we want to get married and we want to start a family, but we can't afford a house. We're living with our parents. How are we supposed to get married and have children if we don't have a house? Slide, please. Political, and I cannot overemphasize this. It's literally not possible. The younger cohort, and so this is millennials and Gen Z more broadly, extreme partisanship and gridlock, what I call the ratchet problem. So anybody that worked in any sort of mechanical job, a ratchet goes one way, and then it won't go the other way. So the left is extremely good at this, is that they'll say, oh, we're gonna keep turning, and then when conservatives push back, it doesn't go the other way, it stops there, and then they wait for the next opportunity to continue to turn it. So Zoomers have seen a consistent degradation of our culture and of our politics because of how aggressive the left is. Extreme intergenerational ideological divide. The data show that, on the whole, Gen Z is the most ideologically polarized within their own generation. And interestingly, this travels along gender lines. Males are moving way far to the right, and females are moving way far to the left. So within their own generational cohort, they're seeing this ideological difference, friction, conflict, etc. And they're seeing a normalization of political violence. This is really important. I want to focus on this just for a minute. I remember in 2015 when we saw people walking into or out of Trump rallies. I mean, just like middle-aged soccer moms, whatever. They're getting eggs thrown at them. If they're single or they can be split off from the group, people are chasing them down and beating them in the streets. And this happened for years. You have the BLM and the George Floyd riots. You have, obviously, the martyrdom of Charlie Kirk. And that specifically is just really puts a pin in what we're facing right now, because not only was Charlie Kirk martyred, but then Zoomers watched their peers in the tens of thousands celebrate it online. They didn't even have the shame to just keep it to themselves, which would have been terrible enough. But they thought it was okay to film themselves and put it on the internet, celebrating the death of a young father on a live stream. That is the Generation Z experience politically, and you better believe it is shaping their political outlook and what they think needs to be done. You cannot underestimate that. On a slightly lighter note, there's a massive disparity in age in these different elected positions. The average age in the House of Representatives is 58. So, that's the median. So half of them are older than that. Half of the Senate is over 64, state legislators 56, and the average local elected officials are between 50 and 60. So we have already lost ground and the opportunity to start getting them into these positions. And not that they are farm teams or anything like that. I'm not saying that. I would argue that local positions are the most important in the grand scheme of things. But how are they going to run and be good legislators at higher positions if they don't have any experience in the lower ones? And then the average age in the US is 38. So with those age differences, are the 38-year-olds being represented? Are the Zoomers being represented? Are the Gen Alpha being represented? Slide, please. So I spoke about this earlier. Each generation, those first 20 to 30 years are crucial in forming their worldview. And to a great extent, they're going to have trouble getting out of that worldview for the rest of their lives and relating to something else. It's not absolute, but many people just sort of assume that the world continues to operate in the way that it did when they were in the 30s, right? I think we're all familiar with this. So Gen Z's experiences have been one of aggressive government takeover, authoritarianism, largely along partisan or ideological lines. And they're seeing one of their chief influencers martyred on live stream, and then their peers cheer for it. Mass cultural degradation and economic and professional hardship. Zoomers are having a hard time finding jobs. It's not just houses. It's jobs that are going to pay them what they should be paid in those positions. We'll touch on that here in a second. Slide, please. So let's look at the operating environment. Young heritage Americans are being displaced. They're being displaced by illegal immigrants and legal immigrants that are abusing the system. Their inheritances, what their fathers built for them over generations, is being stripped from them because of foreigners from a foreign land coming here and saying, yeah, I'll take that. Less housing supply. They can't buy a house. And even if they could, it's too expensive. Fewer job opportunities. These are delaying benchmarks for adulthood that were normally rites of passage. They can't get married, they can't have children, and so they're delaying that. And in turn, everybody here that has ever had children, it makes you grow up really quick. I know I have. And so think about the reverberations of that, the ripple effects of delaying these life goals, these benchmarks in adulthood. A welfare system weighed down by free riders. I think we're seeing that with all the folks that are really upset about SNAP and things like that. Not all of them, but you know what I'm talking about. And a visa and immigration system that is falling apart and is being absolutely taken advantage of by different groups that, quite frankly, don't belong here. We should be serving our own children first, and then if we can help others, praise God. But Oro Morris says that we look after our own children first, and our extended family, and our community, and we can work our way out, sure. But that's the starting point. That should be our priority. You see these leftists celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. You see a greater divide between generational cohorts and within Gen Z as a generational cohort itself. You see this instability, political, economic, financial, and it's continuing to shape their lives and their worldview. You have significantly less trust as a result of all of those things. In more broader sense, social, cultural, government, institutions, etc. So you're looking at about 30% of Gen Z trusts traditional institutions compared to 90% of baby boomers. What is that going to do to the fabric of our nation? What's that going to do to the fabric of our society? It's going to be rent asunder. This is not reflective of the America of old. Slide, please. I'll tell a quick story. When I was about to get out of active duty, there was a master sergeant, and he was about to retire. And he was one of these classic, he got in really young. He's kind of freaking out. He's not really sure what he's going to do once he gets out. If he goes back and watches this, we'll talk about it. But he'll know. But he said, well, I don't like these new airmen. They're lazy and they don't have discipline and so on and so forth. You know the drill. We all know the drill. And I said, well, sir, I'm about to get out. Am I going to tell him? Yeah, I'm going to tell him. I said, sir, I understand your position about the future of your Air Force. But if you see these things in the upcoming generations of airmen, wouldn't it behoove you? There's your NCO word for the day, all my military folks, behoove. Would it not behoove you to be a mentor and an influencer in the lives of those younger airmen so that you can train some of those things out of them? And that way, when you walk outside the base gate for the last time, because you are going to retire, and the Air Force will go on without you, your Air Force, when you walk out that gate for the last time, you can be confident and sure that you did everything that you could to make sure that you were leaving your Air Force in good hands. And he said, okay, never really thought about it like that. And I was like, all right, There's my good deed for the day. So in the same way, we need to be conscious of the legacy that we are leaving for our children and the role that we play in that. Some common statements that younger people, and I include myself in that here, when I went to the Republican Party in Murray County, I just gotten out of the Air Force. I was 31 years old, working on my first master's degree, with 10 years of experience as a non-commissioned officer and 3 combat deployments under my belt. I say, I want to get involved. I want to run for office. You're too young. You're too inexperienced. What? So, already being kept at arm's length, how do you think the 18-year-olds are being treated? Well, I can tell you, based on my experiences in Run Gen Z, they're hearing the exact same thing. You aren't ready yet. Well, how am I supposed to become ready if I'm not given an opportunity to become ready? At least, volunteer on a campaign, do something, but give me an avenue that I can follow so that I am ready for that higher office or to run for office at all. You need more life experience. This is crucial for everyone here, whether you have run for office or been in office or not. Life experience is universal. Wisdom, not so much, but life experience. So you're obliged to give some of that life experience onto them, shepherd them, mentor them, bring them into the fold. Wait your turn. Didn't Hillary Clinton say something like that? It was my turn. But we have members of the GOP, and I'm not picking on the GOP. We have members of the GOP telling them the same thing. It's like, well, but you're 50 or 60 years old in city council. This is your 4th or 5th term. When is it my turn? When are you going to allow me to grow into this position and to take some responsibility and learn some very valuable lessons? Now, less generally, there are some common attitudes that feed into those sayings. One of them is, well, I don't like how they do these things. They're lazy, right? They're entitled, like the master sergeant. Okay, maybe. Or maybe it's because in that generational cohort, they're more attuned to mental and physical health. And sometimes that can be interpreted as entitlement. What, you're taking a health day? What's that? But you have to understand that that is part of their generation. That is something that they value that prior generations did not as much. So it's up to you to adapt to that and to understand where they're coming from. Well, I don't agree with their views on why. Listen, if we went through the whole Rolodex of positions that I have politically, we're going to find something that we disagree on. But is that a good enough reason to not mentor the next generation, to push them aside? They're not saying retirement is sort of the safer example I put here. Well, Gen Z prefers experiences over saving, and they don't believe that retirement's achievable in the first place. Or they're too this or that, they're lazy, maybe. But in the workplace, Gen Z prefers flexibility over pay and benefits. That's more important to them. So the data is all there. The challenge here for you as a potential mentor is to look at the data and instead of assuming something about them and saying, oh, well, they're all just this negative trait. Maybe there's a reason why they express themselves that way or they act that way or it looks like they're following a certain behavioral pattern. Maybe there's a good reason for it. So don't assume the worst. Slide, please. That's why all this matters. Gen Z is the future of the nation, okay? Now, it could be the leftist Zoomers, or it could be the Zoomers on the right. And a big part of that is up to us. But they are the future. And they deserve a chance to build that future because it is theirs. These folks that are in Congress that are literally dying while they're in office, it's not their future. They should be at home, spending time with their grandkids, enjoying retirement. Let the younger folks step up. Give them an opportunity to build their own future. And I hate to say it, but Father Time is undefeated. And death was only defeated once. And none of us are that guy, right? Although he is with us in spirit. Check, got it. But ultimately, this is a gift that we have been given by our forefathers, this nation, the blessings that we have received.
And therefore, we have an obligation, just in the same way that we were given this great gift, to pass it on to our own children. And why would we not? Scripture demands that we do. We're commanded to raise our children with values. We're commanded to provide an inheritance. You know, if your child asks you for a loaf of bread, will you give him a rock? If he asks you for a fish, will you give him a serpent? Of course not. You're to provide for them, and you're to provide not only for your children, but your children's children. And I firmly believe that Scripture is not just talking about monetary inheritance or financial inheritance or assets. It's talking about preparing them for their own lives and for their own future. It doesn't just come in greenbacks. And the elders are commanded to teach the youth, and in turn, younger folks, y'all are obligated to treat the elders with respect. And in many ways, those last two things, those are the only two, those things have to be in place or this doesn't work. And they are the torch carriers of our values. If anyone here did not have children, for whatever reason, you're here tonight, and that signals that there is something of importance to you that brought you here tonight. Are your values important to you? If they are, then they deserve to be carried on by the next generation, but they're not going to do it themselves. You have to give them a reason to and pass those values on to them as an inheritance. Slide, please. All right, let's do a play-by-play, compare and contrast, as my professors would call it. So the older generational cohort, like anything else, has strengths and weaknesses in the same way that the younger generational cohort does. And so for broad strokes here, but older, I'm speaking to the baby boomers and Gen X, and the younger, I'm speaking to the millennials and Gen Z. The older cohort has resources. They're further along in life. They've had more opportunities and time to build up wealth and assets and things like that. They have experience, although not necessarily wisdom, as we talked about. They have institutional power. That is huge. Institutional power. That's an opportunity to pass on not just your experience or your resources, but also give the younger generation an opportunity to step into some of those institutions. And that's where a lot of influence and power happens. And they have temperance. Younger folks, my Zoomers and millennials in here, y'all need temperance, okay? I was a younger man at one time, and I did a lot of really dumb stuff. And I wish someone had come along beside me and said, like, hey, Aaron, it's probably not a great idea, my man. Like, maybe calm down a little bit. But the older generational cohort, they have a perception gap. It's difficult for them to understand on a deeper level the world that they are in now. And it's not ragging on anybody. This is just how human psychology works. It's difficult for them to understand how difficult it is for the younger generations. That's a perception gap. Status quo bias. Well, I'm in charge and I like being in charge. I can't tell you how many individuals, and I'm not going to call out names, but there are a lot of folks in local government in Columbia and in Murray County that have been there for a long time. And they're not necessarily doing anything bad. They're not necessarily doing anything good either. But they like it. They like having the influence. That is the status quo bias. Well, I'm here. I like being here. I think I'll just hang out. I don't want to shake anything up. Technological gap. I helped my grandma, program her VCR. Okay, because it's self-explanatory. And then of course the cultural gap. I'm looking at a lot of the Gen Alpha coming up, and they've got their memes and their sayings and everything. And I'm like, I don't know what any of that is. It's the same thing with all generations. Now on the other side, the younger generational cohort, they have energy, right? They have stamina, they have zeal. They have time on their hands in a lot of cases, especially if they don't have families yet. They have technological literacy, so they know how to make memes or make the online content that is currently in the cultural zeitgeist. It's going to make an impact. It's going to activate their peers. But they're low on discipline. They have a high risk tolerance, like I was talking about with all the dumb things I did. Which most of them will just, an experience gap. They just don't have experience, so you need to give them the opportunity to get it. And they have a resource gap. Politics is money, and money is politics. It's unfortunate, but that is how the system works in this country. They need those things. And if the older generations want their values to continue on, to continue that legacy, and to leave a gift for their children and their children's children, We need to find a way to work together because we complement one another. Perfect example, who saw the article in Politico where that group chat leaked? You know what I'm talking about. So for those of you that don't, there's a lot of young Republican leadership in a group chat. They made a lot of edgy jokes. Check it out, young men make edgy jokes. It's a thing that happens. And somebody leaked it, and instantly they were all castigated, their careers are ruined, they were fired. Does the left do that to their people? Because I've seen congresswomen say explicitly racist things, not only online, but on the floor of the House, and they circled the wagons. Maybe they addressed it internally, we don't know. So, 2 propositions for you based on that example. What if you had one older person in that group chat and said, guys, I get it. I was a young man at one point. Let's tone it down. Let's take it down a notch. I'm not trying to school-marm you, but think about if this gets out. You know, me and my friends in some group chats, we always joke about, hey, you know, this is going to be really funny when it's being read aloud in court, right? The second proposition is, what if we had handled that differently after it was already out? What if the right, what if conservatives said, you know what, these are kids, they made a mistake, but we're not going to crucify them for it. Because we played into the left's hands with that by saying, oh yeah, we're going to excise them from the movement. Many of them were very likely going to be powerful future leaders that now do not have a future. And so we cleaned house for the left. Slide, please. So what can be done? The Baughs were generous enough to leave a jar out on the table for me if you feel so led. But get involved in a Gen Z organization. It can be Run Gen Z, it can be your local Young Republicans group. I mean, take your pick, there's Young Americans for Liberty, so on and so forth. But get involved in some way. And if you can, encourage millennials and Zoomers in your family and in your friends' children, in your social network, in your church. Encourage them to get involved with these organizations because it's not just elected officials. Again, my folks in the military, I was Air Force, I was not Army or Marines. But my understanding is that every infantryman on the front line needs about 9 support personnel behind them. So it's not just about running for office, it's about fundraising, it's about comms and PR, it's about campaign management. And there's a plethora of organizations out there that will give individuals the training they need to do all of those things. Leadership Institute out of Arlington, Virginia is a perfect example of that. So the resources are out there. It's up to you to maybe chase some of those resources yourself or connect somebody that will and further the movement that way. And then after they get involved, shepherd them with experience. If we have a 20-year-old that joins the city council, he or she's probably looking around going, okay, I won, now what? That's when they need you most of all. Because now they have true, real responsibility that affects people's lives. They need some of that experience and, dare I say it, some wisdom. So shepherd them through that. While you're doing that, be patient and be humble. We talked about not assuming the worst of their generation or their behavioral patterns. Think a little bit further. Many of the things, the positions that they hold are going to be things that you don't agree with, or you don't like the way that they do certain things. Give them an appropriate leash to exercise some of those things. And this is always a bit of a training problem, right? You don't want to let them fall too hard. You know, if I'm teaching my son to ride a bike, I really don't want him to hurt himself badly, but if he hurts himself a little bit, he's going to learn from it. So finding that angle and that attitude. Be patient and be humble, and that goes both ways. Keep in mind that what you did in your time, what makes sense in your time, may not make sense in theirs because they do live in a very different time, a very different world. This isn't Reagan's America, right? This isn't Clinton's America. It's not even George W. Bush's America. This is a totally different ballgame. So give them a little bit of leeway, a little bit of grace, and assume that they might know better in some things. So be a little introspective. Give them space to learn and gain experience, and that means letting them fail sometimes. And I cannot emphasize this enough, do not school-marm them. There's a woman in Murray County who is very dear to me, but she has a habit of treating me and some other young men like we're her sons, and we're not. We're not children. We are grown men, and we are not her kin. Love her. We are not her king. Do not school mark. Especially the young men in the room, they will bolt so fast. Treat them with respect, but be firm when they need correction. Young men in the audience in particular, my brothers in Christ, we have an obligation to be leaders in general. So if you're not involved in some facet, you have a masculine duty as an American male to lead your family, lead your community, and so on. As a Christian, you have a spiritual obligation to make sure that your faith and your worldview is protected and projected in your family, in your church, in your community. So you all especially have a particular responsibility in that regard. Slide, please. Okay, this is the conclusion. So we talked about who you are, where you fit into the grand scheme of all of this, the generational differences along economic, political, and worldview lines, the operating environment that Gen Z is currently living in, this clash of generations, and how we can overcome those obstacles, how we can bridge that generational divide. So I will leave y'all with a challenge in the next couple of days. Talk about what you learned tonight. Debate it amongst yourselves. Find a way that y'all can get involved, as little or as much as possible. You know, I don't want anybody to commit to something that they can't follow through. But get involved in some way and at some level, because our future is at stake. After the next, about 3 years and some change, we're going to have another election. And, we have Vice President J.D. Vance is a millennial, which I love, by the way. I'm like, finally! He's one of us! But this time is going to continue to march on. We are going to continue to have more elections and more administrations. And so we have an obligation to make sure that the upcoming generations are prepared for that mandate and for that responsibility. It is up to us. Slide, please. David, can I take 3? Okay, 3 questions. Okay, I assume I did a great job then. Sir.
So definitely the divide between the older and younger generation. I feel like the younger generation is seeing the change in this country, demographics, economy, foreign policy. They're upset, they want things to change. The older generation sometimes holds on to some of their beliefs and ideas, longer, while the younger generation maybe is more radical and thinks differently about it. In particular, what I'm thinking about is the relationship that the United States has with Israel. That's something that I see the younger generation say, why are we continuing to support them? They're doing so much negative press and the genocide against how the United States looks. I hear them say that not only on the left, on the right,
Sure.
but then you often hear a lot of the older generation unwilling to even criticize them and shoot them down. Is there any recommendations you have on where we should stand with that?
Absolutely, and that's an excellent question. Thank you for asking. So this goes back to what I talked about with having humility and thinking more deeply about these issues, even having some introspection. There are going to be policy positions that you don't agree with. And of course, we all know that social media is a bit of a dumpster fire at the best of times. But I see, particularly around that position, or that policy position, among others, a lot of gasping and clutching at pearls. We need to understand that, especially within our own movement, there should not be any golden calves. And if you'll pardon the pun there, but there should be no golden calves. If someone is coming to you, a younger person is coming to you, and you have a policy position, a difference in policy position, then treat them with honesty and respect, and hear them out. They might have a position or a reason for their position that you didn't consider before. And again, at this point, we're all adults in the room, right? We should be able to talk about these things openly, even if you feel really strongly about the position. And ultimately, if you can't see exactly where they're coming from, remember, they are going to be the future. And so if it's just something that y'all cannot agree on, move on to the next thing. You don't have to agree on everything. In fact, you're probably not going to. So, but that is one of the major things, and these major issues are going to continue to come up, and there will continue to be some pretty major differences in outlook and goals on those positions. So especially with that, because I understand that I've looked into that difference between the generations on that particular issue very deeply, and it is very contentious. There are religious connotations, There are cultural connotations, diplomatic connotations, etc. But that doesn't mean that it's off the table for discussion. And so at the end of the day, we do need to have those tough conversations and then figure out how we move forward together from there. Any other questions? Okay, thank you all so much for your, sir.
Well, I'm from England, by the way. So,
Ah.
but I'm an English vet, I hope that I see what's going on in England and Europe, and I see how we've dropped the ball with our youth, school and colleges for generations. And I believe it's been mass indoctrination. I don't believe I feel bad for them. They've been basically being brainwashed into it from questioning what gender they are to political views. I think the elephant in the room for me is Islam too. And is that something we should prepare our youth for? Because I believe that that's going to be the biggest issue coming to this country as well. Well, Europe's in the midst of it. People are waking up. There's a lot of revival. There's young men turning to Christ. They're seeing how not following Christ has led the country into the situation because it's been that void.
Yes.
But I do believe there's a global, well, ultimately it's Satan. But I was just wondering what you thought about that. There's a dark cloud on the horizon. I think this is why I wear my Crusade t-shirt, because it's time to get ready. It's coming.
I agree. I completely agree, and thank you for positing that. Yeah, I think there's obviously a significant cultural difference politically between the UK and the US. But that aside, we do share certain things, Western values, Christian faith, and I think we should be taking what's going on in Europe right now as a lesson to what very likely could happen to us. Listen, folks, if the left is allowed to come back into power on the federal level, the floodgates will be opened to everyone to a degree that we didn't see under the Biden administration. It is going to get much worse. And we already see how many of these foreign people groups are asserting their social values and their cultural values. There was I don't believe it was Dearborn, but there's a place somewhere up north, gross, that it has a large Somali population.
Oh, yeah.
It was Minneapolis. And there was a Christian pastor that was speaking as a citizen to his city government.
Yes.
It was a Dearborn.
Was it Dearborn? Okay. Yeah, isn't it sad that we get different ones mixed up at this point? That's how bad it is.
One city in there.
Exactly, yeah. Which one that is having to call the prayer 5 times a day? And he says to this Christian pastor, because the Christian pastor is like, hey, man, we're in America. I wasn't really expecting a call to prayer over the loudspeakers 5 times a day. And the city mayor, who represents this man, looks him in the eye and says, you are not welcome here. A foreigner from a foreign land came here, instituted their cultural values, and then said to the American, you're not welcome here in your own country. And the pastor was very polite. But I think that is part of the problem. We are too tolerant. And to be perfectly clear, I'm not calling for any sort of untoward or illegal behavior. But we need to firmly and politely say, if that's your attitude, you are not welcome here. We would love to give you a one-way ticket back to where you came from, and you can stay there. But that requires us to have the political will to do so. And right now, culturally, I don't know that we do. I think we're getting there, especially among the youth. There's a lot of movement in that direction, and I applaud it. So the older folks need to encourage that and get behind that and throw their support behind it. Thank you for your question, sir. We got one more.
Yeah, so with regard to the younger generation being more radical, like the Sanson Baughh said earlier, if the left ever does come back to power, I think we ought to understand that there is going to be a reckoning, right? You could say a constitutional crisis.
Yeah.
I mean, with COVID, we saw pastors and priests get thrown into jail out of their own churches. So, in my belief, I think we're already past the point of no return in this constitutional republic. I'm fine with that. You know, it's a scary situation, but I think this Constitution has run its course. Nobody else is playing by these rules anymore. My question to you is, the younger people see this from the right way.
Yeah.
They're not afraid of these concepts. They're not afraid of exploring monarchy, even fascism, National Socialism, or just something that is going to defeat the left. Have you experienced this, and have you bridged the gap with the older generations that are in power? Because it just seems like they're so, and for all the right reasons, as an American, I love American history, I love the founding fathers, it simply failed to protect what they fought for. So I guess, is there any way to kind of bridge that gap and saying, you know, maybe we need to pick something else up or create something different?
Outstanding question. Thank you for asking me that. And these are the hard conversations that we need to be having across generations, by the way. Lots to unpack there. So I believe that you're correct in that we are swiftly moving away from a point where a constitutional republic is still tenable. And that's for a lot of reasons. That's a whole nother presentation, but the Hart-Celler Act of 1965 is a perfect example of that. We have rapidly, since the 60s, been moving towards a critical mass where it can no longer be maintained. I think it was John Adams said that the Constitution will only work for a moral and religious people. And of course, the religion that he was referring to was Christianity. There's no question about that. It will work for no other. And we are rapidly approaching the point where, well, now it is other in this country. So, to answer your question more pointedly, I think the young cohort and the older cohort do need to be having these conversations. And if a younger person is saying, I don't know, man, what about monarchy? Then instead of scoffing at them or saying, that's silly, that's dumb, take them seriously and make a cogent argument to the young person why monarchy may not be the best approach. Or maybe there are some younger folks that are moving into fascism. You have to understand that there is a level of desperation among Gen Z that has not been seen before, certainly in the history that I've studied. There's a meme I've seen floating around that says Weimar times call for Weimar solutions. And part of it's edgy humor. It's like, haha, yeah, that's crazy. But Gen Z is reaching a level of desperation where they're like, is that so crazy? Because in the Weimar Republic, things were so bad, the German people were looking for a way out, and they found one. And we know how that turned out for the world. So make a cogent argument for why, whatever they're interested in or they're sort of experimenting with, give them a reason why that's a bad idea and give them a better alternative. But that requires remaining humble, being intelligent and knowledgeable enough to make those arguments, and then being patient with them and understanding with them in order to walk them through that. And hopefully come to a conclusion that isn't quite that radical. I don't think we're too far gone yet, respectfully. But to right the ship, I think we are going to have to take some dramatic steps to return us to a place as a nation where we can remain a constitutional republic and raise our children. I have 2 boys. And I do things like this so that they don't have to. That is what drives me in doing all of these things. I want to make sure that the country that they grow up in is safe for them, that they can walk down the street, that they can go visit their friends, that they can go to school, and they can enjoy life, and then go on to be prosperous and healthy. And that means that the older generations, so above Gen Alpha, which is everybody here, I think, except for one, that requires all of us to do a little bit more and to have uncomfortable conversations and maybe even to support some things that 20 years ago might have seemed very dramatic. But if you want to avoid some of those more extreme ideologies taking over in this country, we're going to have to do a little bit of have some difficult conversations, do some difficult things, and we have to be okay with that because the alternative in most cases is much worse. Those are my 3 questions. I'll stay for a little bit if y'all want to talk. Thank you so much for your time.
Austin, you want to come on up?
Yeah, sure.
So our next meeting will be on the first Tuesday of the month, and we already have a guest speaker lined up for you. So Austin Lee is our next month's speaker, and tell us the topic. Come on over. Welcome, Austin.
Thank you much. Good evening, everyone. I really hope I do not have to follow a speech like that, because that was fantastic. So we kind of, at the end of tonight's speech, got into the topic that is honestly the elephant in the room, and that is the question of the 30 million foreigners that came into our country during Joe Biden's presidency. So the focus of my presentation next month is going to be specifically immigration and why we have the moral high ground to make the people who came into our country uninvited return to their homelands permanently. So that is
Oh, I appreciate that. So just a reminder, we do have a collection box or barrel for Aaron to help with his travel expenses, and we have a box or barrel to help with the church expenses. Again, as Susan mentioned, we are not charged anything for meeting here, so we want to help keep the lights and power on. And thank you all for what you are doing. Y'all are amazing. I wish we had time to take the mic to everyone in this room, because y'all have some amazing stories. And so if you have a little bit of time after this mingle, we're looking forward to next month. Have a lot of great things going on. I want you all to leave very encouraged. One of the things we love about Charlie Kirk is just as Aaron shared with us, he had an open mic, and just like the vice president said at Ole Miss, he said, if you disagree, come to the front of the line. And he had an open discussion, and one of the things I love specifically about the way Charlie conducted that, a lot of times he'd take his mic and sit down and listen to the other side, and then he would educate. He would. And so we have the moral high ground, and there's a reason that our constitutional republic is the longest living. As a reminder, the longest living by far, the average constitutional republic is 17 years old. We were going to celebrate 238 on our next September 11th. That's the Constitution celebration. We're going to celebrate our 250th birthday next year. That was the signing of the Declaration. So I want to thank you all for everything you're doing. Another round of applause for Mr. Aaron. Great job. Appreciate it. Good work. The gentleman from the UK said he's from the UK. And one of the things I love about Michael is, and I think his first time we visited, he has a military background in the UK. He said, I am not a British American. I'm not anything hyphen American. He said, I am American. And he wants to see that what has happened, frankly, in the UK does not happen here. The way that we ensure that we remain the greatest country that has ever been born is to do what you all are doing. We have an amazing amount of headwinds, and so the signs of a fight, and when you get a lot of flack, what does that mean? You are over target. I also wanted to say one thank you to Jasmine. For those of you that didn't know, Jasmine is the one that coordinated the Blount County Remembrance, a celebration of life, really, for Charlie Kirk. And it was a great turnout. We had a lot of youth involved with that. So thank you again. Applause for Ms. Jasmine. Appreciate that. All right. And so thank you all. Great to see you. So we'll see you back here. If we haven't gotten you on our mailing list, we have a sign up for that. That's our email list. And Susan, what am I forgetting? Anything?